All right, buckle up for this one because we're diving headfirst into a wild corruption scandal rocking the Guyanese police force.
This is one of those stories that really grabs you. It's not just about the scandal itself, but what it reveals about the system.
And we're talking big allegations, not just some small-time stuff, right? This involves Assistant Commissioner Calvin Brutus, someone high up in the ranks.
You got it. Brutus was a big deal, right under the Commissioner of Police. Think about the structure of a police force. He was essentially managing the whole thing, responsible for the administration of everything.
So not someone you'd expect to see tangled up in this kind of mess. What exactly are the accusations? The article mentioned something about a financial intelligence unit report.
Yeah, the FIU caught wind of some fishy business in Brutus's finances, which of course set off alarm bells and sparked a full-blown investigation by the Special Organized Crime Unit, SOCU.
Okay, and what did they dig up?
Well, remember, these are still allegations at this point, but we're talking potentially a money laundering operation, maybe a whole corrupt procurement scheme orchestrated by Brutus himself. And get this, over 45 million Guyanese dollars in cash deposited into one of his accounts.
Wait, $45 million? Seriously? I can barely afford a cup of coffee these days, let alone $45 million. What's his explanation for that kind of cash?
Get ready to laugh or cry, because he's claiming it was all wedding and Christmas gifts.
Wedding and Christmas gifts? You've got to be kidding me. Who has that kind of money lying around for gifts, and who's giving a police officer those kinds of gifts?
Right. It gets even more interesting. The article goes on to say that a single businessman allegedly funded a huge chunk of Brutus's wedding to the tune of 8.5 million Guyanese dollars.
Now, that's one generous wedding present. So we've got a high-ranking police official accused of some very serious financial shenanigans, a mountain of cash with a flimsy explanation, and a businessman with incredibly deep pockets. What could make this even juicier? So we're trying to wrap our heads around a mountain of cash, questionable wedding gifts, and Assistant Commissioner Brutus right in the middle of it all. But this has gotten way bigger than just one police officer, right? Seems like the government is really stepping into the spotlight on this one.
You're absolutely right, and this is where things get really interesting. The way the government is reacting, especially Vice President Jagdeo, well, it's speaking volumes about how seriously they're taking this.
Yeah, Jagdeo didn't exactly mince words. The article quoted him saying, and I quote, "The PPP will not tolerate corruption. No attempt to cover it up." That sounds like a very pointed statement, don't you think?
It definitely is. You have to remember that Guyana has had its fair share of struggles with corruption, so for Jagdeo to come out swinging like this, it's a calculated move. He's trying to present the PPP as the good guys, the ones pushing for transparency and real change.
It's like he's sending a message, not just to the public, but maybe even to the police force itself. A little reminder of who's really in charge here, maybe?
Exactly. And when you consider that Brutus is claiming he has some kind of special relationship that would protect him, well, Jagdeo's statement suddenly feels even more pointed, even a little threatening.
Wait a second, back up. Did Brutus actually say that? He honestly believes he's untouchable.
That's the claim, at least. It certainly adds fuel to the fire, especially with public trust already hanging by a thread. But Jagdeo doesn't back down. In fact, he doubles down and calls out that businessman-funded wedding, calling it reprehensible.
Which, let's be real, is something most people would agree with. I mean, an $8.5 million wedding, that's not just a party, that's a declaration.
For sure. It raises some serious eyebrows. What are the chances this was just generosity? It makes you wonder about potential influence, maybe some quid pro quo going on behind the scenes. But hold on to your hats, because this story takes a truly wild turn.
You know, I love a good plot twist. Lay it on me.
Brutus is now saying that the acting police commissioner himself encouraged him to take those lavish gifts. And get this, he even promised to hook Brutus up with contacts to help cover the wedding expenses.
Whoa, are you serious? The acting commissioner actually encouraged this whole thing. So, let me get this straight. Brutus is potentially corrupt, and he might have been pushed in that direction by someone even higher up. Talk about a tangled web. So, we've got accusations flying every which way, denials, and now this whole thing about the acting commissioner potentially giving Brutus the green light. This isn't just a news story anymore, it's a full-blown legal battle.
It's a courtroom drama unfolding right before our eyes. And Brutus isn't just rolling over. He's filed a constitutional motion challenging the investigation and that forced leave.
Okay, constitutional motion. That sounds serious. What exactly does that mean?
Basically, he's saying that this whole investigation is violating his rights, his fundamental rights under Guyana's constitution. It's a high-stakes gamble because this could have a ripple effect on how these kinds of corruption cases are handled down the line.
So it's Brutus's word against the government's, right? What are the chances he actually pulls this off?
Well, Jagdeo did say that the government has some pretty damning information up their sleeve, ready to unleash in court when the time is right.
Oh, juicy. Spill the tea. What kind of information are we talking about here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? We'll just have to wait and see what gets revealed in the courtroom. But honestly, regardless of who wins this legal battle, this whole thing has already exposed some serious issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, you're right. It's bigger than just Brutus and his questionable wedding gifts. It's about something much bigger.
Exactly. It forces us to ask some tough questions about the Guyanese police force. Is corruption just a few bad apples, or is there something systemic going on here? Do they have the right checks and balances in place to prevent this kind of abuse of power?
And let's play devil's advocate for a second. If Brutus wins, what message does that send about accountability?
Right. It could set a dangerous precedent, making it harder to investigate and hold high-ranking officials accountable for corruption. It could create a real sense of impunity.
So, where do we go from here? What should we be paying attention to as this case moves forward?
Keep a close eye on what evidence is presented in court, of course, and the verdict. But even more importantly, we need to see how this impacts the public's trust in law enforcement. Will this spark real change and reform within the police force? Or will it be swept under the rug like it never happened?
It's a pivotal moment for Guyana. This case could determine whether they move towards a more transparent and accountable system, or if the cycle of corruption just continues. This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. It really makes you think.